Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Agile Development Lecture brought to you by the New York ICO Hub. I'm Jing Chen, an Innovation Fellow in the New York ICO Hub and a CTO of a tech startup. And here's the agenda of this lecture. I will cover a brief history of the Agile, followed by the discussion of various approaches in the software and product development, what works well and what does not. Then we will dive deeply into the Agile development to see why it is the preferred method for the lean startup and how it is aligned with the customer development. Then finally, I will present some roadmap that you can be used for your product or service. So let's begin with the history. In between 1960 and 1970, there is a software crisis, where many software projects are failed due to the increased complexity of the project that leading to the cost overrun, delays, and quality issues. Moreover, by the time when the project was complete, the market demand has changed. So the final product became less relevant or useful than its initial intent. And people start to change their approach to planning and delivering a new product throughout the 1990s. And in spring 2000, a group of 17 software development got together to discuss how they can speed out this development process to bring in the new software to the market faster. And just a year later, the same group meet again and hold this 3-day meeting in which they produce the Agile Manifesto. And that is the beginning of the Agile. The Agile Manifesto is really getting more attention between 2012 and 2015, which over 50% of organizations are adopting the Agile for their product development. And nowadays, more and more organizations are following the Agile for their product development. Remember, it's not just the software industry. So let's see a real-world example of how the product can be failed with the long development timeline and the market change. So Airbus A380, which is the world's largest passenger aircraft, they actually start their development process as early as 1988. And due to the collapsibility of the design and the manufacturing, it does not have its first commercialized flight until 2007. And that's nearly 20 years of development time. And when they enter in the service, they face even more challenges in terms of the capability of the existing airport infrastructure. So many airports have to make significant modification to accommodate this aircraft size, which including expanding the runway, the taxiway, and upgrading the airport gate. Additionally, the economic actually went down and the market demand get another change, especially during the COVID-19. So as a result, the production of A380 actually ended in 2021, and its development cost was not even recovered. So Airbus A380 is just one example of how the product can be failed when there is lack of understanding of the customer's need or when the market change over time. So now let's walk through another example together to see how things can be failed with the traditional approach and why Agile is a preferred practice for the lean startup that can be used to adapt the market change. So let's start by imagining yourself as an AI developer who is going to create an AI model to help the marketing agency to turn their idea into attractive visuals. I know many of you may not be a tech person, so you can also think yourself as an artist to help the customer drawing something based on their requirement. And showing the update in drawing is just an easy way for us to visualize the difference in between different approach that we will go over later. And I promise we will not go into any technical details. So let's use this as an example. where the user requirement for the product is a portrait of woman outdoor. And the desired product is the most famous woman's portrait, the Mona Lisa. Feel free to think about your own product as we're going through the lecture. Treat the development of this drawing by the AI as the development of your own product based on your own customer's need. So note that here, the input prompt is treated as the user requirement. That can be changed over time, like the new information you learn throughout your customer discovery. And our goal is to find an effective way to develop the business model and be capable of adapting the change based on the new information we learn. So there are 3 high-level approaches on this spectrum in the software development, range from linear to incremental to iterative. And Agile is a specific approach that combines both incremental and iterative approach that can be also applied in the product development. And we will go over all 4 approaches to understanding how they operate and see what works well and what does not. So let's look at the linear approach first, which also known as the waterfall. It is a traditional software development methodology that follows a sequential and step-by-step approach, which this approach divides the process into multiple phases, and each phase must be completed before you move on to the next one, like the waterfall. So in the beginning, you need to interact with the user to understand their requirements, then followed by the design and building the product. Afterward, you will need to test the product before release to the user. And there could be additional support stage after the product release. And the major downside of this approach, which can happen many times, is that the result product, like this one, is not the desired product that user want. Or user actually change their requirement after they seen this product. Then you need to go all the way back to the first phase and start all over again. This is very hard to make change in between the phase for this approach. And this approach is too linear, and the customer might not know what they really want until they see the product. It's too late for redesign and re-implement. So let's see another approach, incremental, which is a bit easier to adapting the change compared to the waterfall. It also starts with the requirement analyze, but then it is break down the project into multiple pieces, which each piece is just a part of the product and delivered in a separate circle. So if you notice here, release circle is like a small waterfall approach that we just go over before, that also contain the design, build, test, and the release. But they only focus on the small piece of the product. So with our Mona Lisa drawing again, which in the release one, the AI can just focus on the face, then move to the background in the release 2. And in the final release, they can have the full drawing that including the body. Where the downside for this approach is that user need to wait until the later stage to get the full functionality. So it is very hard for them to give a overall feedback for each release. And it's very complex coordination in between the new pieces, how you put things together. So let's see another approach, the iterative approach, which is even more flexible to adapting to the changes. So instead of delivering the entire product at once, the iterative approach release a version of a product in each iteration. So each iteration also contains the design, build, and test phase. And most importantly, they have feedbacks in between each iteration that allow the flexibility to adapt the change and make the improvement according to customers' feedback. So as you can see in this example, the Mona Lisa drawing in each iteration actually improve over time, but there's also a downside for this approach. The downside is that the product changed too much between each iteration. That can lead to the uncertainty in timeline. So in this example, the drawing changed the outline from the iteration 1 to iteration 2, which this can be mean change the entire structure of the AI model. Or if you are producing a physical product, it can be mean change the entire appearance of your product. And this type of change are very time consuming. So another example will be my own startup, Nearbo, which at the beginning we have developed a mobile app for the indoor navigation for the event center. Then after we're going through the iCore program and did the customer discovery, what we actually find out that it is very hard for people to download an app just for navigation, which they probably only need it for a short period of time. And people generally don't really care about the highly accuracy that we are promoting. They just want to know where they are and where they should go. So we have to change our mobile app into a web version. And that is super time consuming and a big update in our iteration. And that is because we did not really think through at the beginning what our user really need. So let's look at the agile development now, which is our most preferred way for the product development. So as I said before, it is a combination of both iterative and incremental approach that aim to deliver small and functional increments of a product in a short development cycle. So as you can see in this example of improving the Mona Lisa drawing with the Agile, each release of the drawing actually contained a small additional content compared to the previous one. So such that it only updates the color or refine the detail of a small portion of drawing. So in Agile, we will have a working prototype for each iteration that is capable for us to receive the customer feedback, but only continue revise with small incremental change based on users' feedback. And Agile was initially designed for the software development, but it is not only limited to software. It is widely applied in the business product development because its characteristic with those recurrent short cycle for each iteration make it well fit for the dynamic business environment. And that allow the continuous improvement and make flexible adjustment even in very late development process to help you align your product with your users' need, the market demand. And the key here is the customer collaboration, which is very important in Agile. We need to obtain the customer feedback in between each iteration to ensure the product is aligned with customers' need. So let's look at that in the customer development process that you have learned before. After the customer discovery, which you should have discovered your target customer's pain point. The customer validation is come after to validate if your proposed solution can be effectively address the customer's issue or not. And during this validation process, you may receive the customer's feedback, suggesting that initially identified problem or the market segment might not be as significantly as you thought. So in our example of the AI drawing, which our original target customer is the marketing agency, which it end out that they may not need this product as much as the content creator, such as the graphic designer, or they may want the result product in a video format instead of just images. So in such case, a pivot may be considered in this customer search process. And part of this search process will introduce the new hypotheses, the new experiments for the product feature. And the adaptability of the agile development can be supporting that change and help you continuous your customer search process with data and feedback. Remember, sometimes your customers may not exactly know what they need until they are in this iterative process. So here's the summary of the 4 approach that we discussed, where the waterfall model is easy to follow with the step-by-step process, but it is hard to adapting the changes. And the incremental approach is a bit easier to adapting the change with divided part, but it's very hard to get the customer feedback with the partial product and can have integration challenges. Where the iterative approach is a more flexible to adapting the change and receive the customer feedback. But it takes a long time for each iteration with number of things to be changed. And Agile is our preferred way for the product development. It is highly adaptable to changes and also faster time to the market with those short development cycles. It does require a strong collaboration and communication with our customers. So now let's look at an example of developing a minimum viable product with Agile. So in this example, the job that customers need to be done is actually moving around. So the product release on the top, especially for the first 2 versions, it is not a fully functional product, which cannot really accomplish the job to be done. So you cannot really get the customer feedback. But for each product on the bottom, it is a fully functional product to get the job done, and with a workable product that you can get your customer feedback. So you can learn what's need to be improved for the next iteration. And remember, minimum viable product, known as the MVP, only contain the critical features that are essential to provide to the customers with necessary solution of their problem. And you need to develop MVP to get the customer feedback, so you know what to improve for your future product that are better fit for the customer's need. Again, Agile can be extended to nearly any product or service. The key is to treat Agile not as a set of guidelines, but as a fundamental mindset. So adopting this mindset can incorporate flexibility into your product development process and help you align your product more effectively with the dynamic market demand. So Agile works well with the plan first, and I will go over the 3 different types of Agile roadmap that you can use for your product development, which this roadmap also work with your customer discovery. The first is the now, next, later roadmap. That will be a good start if you are doing the roadmap for the first time. It is designed to outline the big picture of your goal and milestone for each iteration of your product. The now section actually outlines the most pressing objective and ensure that your efforts are concentrated to most critical tasks on hand. So for many of you, it can be what is your prototype and how that can be benefit to your customers. Who is your target customers? And the next section, including the items that are planning for the nearly future, which is can be what else is need to add to turn your prototype into your minimum viable product, and how that will be satisfy your target customers' need. And the later section actually including the features or improvement that are not immediately actionable, which means they require more customer discovery but are worth to consider in the longer term. Note that customer discovery work along with this roadmap. The product need to be built based on customers' need. And you should update the roadmap based on the new information you learn throughout your customer discovery. So now, take a moment to pause the video and start writing down some idea for your own now, next, later roadmap of your product or service. So we just covered the first roadmap. Let's move on to the next one, the goal-oriented product roadmap. It aligns the product development with the business objective. And for this roadmap, it contains a clear and measurable goal for each iteration, including the timeline, the overall goal, the list of features, and expected outcome. So let's use Zoom as an example, where in the initial phase, the objective may be defined as to getting the initial user base to validate the product idea by the end of first quarter. And it will contain the feature like account registration, the chat, and video calls. The expected outcome is to reach a total of 5,000 users by the end of first quarter, which with the 800 daily active user. And similarly, you can outline the goal, matrix, and feature for the future release timeline. Again, keep in mind the roadmap is not a one-time creation. Rather, it is a dynamic artifact that should be regularly updated to reflect on the evaluation of your product and the customer's need. So let's go through another example, the user story mapping. This makes you think through some of the jobs that need to be done by your customers and help you walk through the features and functionality needs from your end user perspective. So let's consider this example that a front desk reception in the doctor's office, whose job is to schedule the appointment with patient. So some of the key activities that they need to perform actually including adding and confirming the appointments. Then there are several steps for each activity, such that they need to identify the patient information, finding the available time, and creating an appointment in order to complete the process of adding the appointment for the patient. And for each step, you may also need to create a different feature to make it work. For example, identifying the patient while requiring search by the patient name or birthday. You might even need to create a new patient portfolio. So overall, this user story mapping helps you to have a thorough understanding of the end user activity, assisting you in creating a user-friendly and effective product, and to see what they need and how they can use your product to make their job easier. So this is the three roadmaps that we just discussed that can help you to create a user-friendly and strategized product to align the customer's need. And you need to keep updating it as you talking with your customer. And you should choose one of those roadmaps for your product, including in your future presentation. And as a recommendation, the now, next, and later roadmap can be an easier start. So in summary, the Agile development and the customer development are working together for the product development, as we can see throughout our roadmap example. Both processes can help you optimize the time and resource in your business development. Remember to focus on the interactive and incremental change means short development cycle for workable product that you can receive customer feedback when you develop and release your product. So this is just a brief overview of the Agile. Now, please start creating your own Agile roadmap and think about how your startup can be moved forward with the Agile mindset. And thank you for listening.